Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of Yellowstone Season 5, Episode 6. Can you believe it that the Paramount Network is about to go yoink and take away this show for another extended period of time?
We only have one more episode of Yellowstone this season for the rest of this year. And then we don't know when it's coming back. I mean, they're splitting the season, and yeah, big question mark. But at least we have one more before the end of the year.
Well, here is the big question mark that lies within this episode. What is Sarah doing with Jamie? What is the end game here? What sort of elaborate scheme is being plotted out? There's a
Yeah.
lot to get into here.
Absolutely. But before we get into Jamie and Sarah and everything that they are plotting,
Yeah.
if you're new to the channel, I'm Jess. This is Matt. We cover Yellowstone here every week that it's on. We have videos up after the episode. So hit that subscribe button. We have lots of fun discussion here at the channel. Good, bad, everything in between of what we think of the episodes, and of course hearing from you guys in the comments. So yeah, hit that subscribe button, follow us over on Instagram, Matt and Just TV.
Okay, we're just gonna get right into Jamie and Sarah, and I will say, go ahead, everybody, put on your tinfoil hat. I know I'm
Uh-oh.
already wearing a hat, but I'm putting tinfoil around the hat. Okay, so here's what I think is going on here, because Sarah is obviously somebody who's trying to think very, very far ahead.
Mhm.
She is smart, but she also realizes that she's got a very big problem here in John. So Jamie is, of course, the easy patsy that she is going to try to find a way to work and scheme and get to her advantage. And the problem, of course, here is just that finding a way to make this happen, because Jamie is so volatile that you can't count on him. So she lies out her plan, but she's got to have some sort of other idea here, because when are we ever going to count on Jamie to actually consistently do what anyone wants before snapping and going rogue?
All right, so here is Sarah's plan. It's seemingly her plan is to make Jamie governor, get the airport through, and then maybe get some more deals going through. I think there was a moment with their conversation that I think she found the in to make Jamie hers and her puppet for as long as she wants. And the biggest thing about Jamie that we've known is his insecurity about himself. He, has never really felt like he's part of the Duttons. Then he found out that he was sort of adopted into the family and nobody wants him. And then he met up with his biological father who, was a jerk and didn't really want him for anything that meant anything. He's a character that just has been unwanted and feels unloved. So then here comes Sarah, who is like, having a fun time with him. And then Jamie showed his cards. He was basically like, I get sort of a little bit why you're here and what you're trying to manipulate or whatever, but really, like, look at you. Why are you here with me, sort of thing. And there was this sort of aha moment that she had where she was just like, why am I here? Like, look at you. Like, you're a tall drink of water. You're a handsome guy. You're a smart guy. Like, she kind of really realized that his big thing that she can manipulate is love. So there was that moment where she was just kind of like, oh, I'm starting to really like you. Oh, and where we're all, I don't know. I was just like, okay, obviously there's a possibility, but I just don't think that's what it is. I think her like a bigger, longer plan that's not just sleeping with Jamie and then offering him this opportunity to be like, hey, I'm going to make you the governor. And once I do, you're going to push to the airport. Okay, no problem. How do you make that long term where Jamie will step in line? Because like you said, Jamie, he's not really reliable on stuff because he is very volatile. He's really in his feelings a lot. He goes off like this, like a matchbook. So how do you keep some sort of control on that? You offer him love. You offer him feeling of, you want him, sort of thing. And then he will do whatever you want. So if she can continue to give that to him, at least as long as getting the airport together. She can continue that on longer after. If it's like, oh, okay, we got the airport. What else do we want? Okay, we want this, 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 this. Hey, Jamie, I love you. Like, it really seems like it's so simple, but I mean, when you really think about it, those feelings are so complicated in Jamie of feeling unwanted, unloved, doesn't fit in. When you finally find somebody that loves you the way that you are or is pretending to, you're going to latch onto it.
Yeah, and this is a much more complicated situation, I think, than what happened, with Garrett Randall. Because I was kind of thinking a little bit about, like, okay, how is this different than, Garrett Randall coming up and being like, oh, I'm your father now, I will take it, blah, blah, everything, but the big difference is, this is not somebody who Jamie has some history in the sense of, okay, this is not someone who left you with somebody else. It's not somebody who abandoned you. I know there's a lot that went on with Garrett, and nothing is
Mhm.
anywhere near as simple as I'm painting it to be, but there's no like established history here at all. This is somebody who can actually paint an illusion, I think, in a way that Garrett Randall could not because of everything that happened in the past. And so I think it's something that's existing within the present. And I think because also Beth is treating him so terribly right now that I think once you're starting to like slide down into a pit and somebody is even just giving you like a really crummy rope, it's not even like a good rope, it can snap at any second. It's still a rope. It's still a way to kind of like crawl out of there.
Okay, before we get too far into how this can all happen,
Yeah.
make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying this conversation. Like I said, we do have them here every week, a bit deeper conversations into Yellowstone. Okay,
Yeah.
how are they going to be able to make this happen? Because the thing that we saw in this episode was sort of, we saw all the cowboys off, and oh
Yeah.
my goodness, it was. This whole part of the episode, them off and herding the cattle and just the sunsets and the views and the conversations and everything that was happening, it was just so well done. Like, this is
Yeah.
what I was really hoping for after last week's episode, which I think you guys know we weren't the biggest fans of. But this episode, like, it kept like hitting the mark on a lot of things. And that was one of the things. So, how do you make John then look bad? Because while they were out, Emmett passed away, and then there was this moment where he came back and spoke to the widow and was like, hey, this is what happened, and he died the way of the cowboy kind of thing, and she was really upset and was like, okay, and they were hugging, and then the news got it, and then they put it on the news. It's like, oh, he could have met the president, but he didn't because he's with the people kind of thing. And how do you break that image up? Because we even had Jamie and Sarah watching this where it's kind of like, okay, Jamie, you want to be the governor. She wants to make you the governor. How do you do that when you see John hugging a widow and being like, meh, the president? No, it's the people. It's just like, I don't know how they get around that.
Okay, this season is going to turn me insane with this. I'm gonna say that now because I'm probably gonna spout this same theory off for like another 3 or 4 episodes or however long they drag this out. But I believe it in my soul. It is the freaking wolves. Everybody prepare yourself for Wolfgate to hit another dimension. Because here is the biggest thing is that the John is selling himself to the people as authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of you guys. I am of this land. I am salt of the earth. I'm doing things differently. And, the crisis, with the wolves themselves is one thing, but you're sort of adding to that. And I think this is going to become clear over time, no matter how much people try to hide it. It's the cover up. It's the idea of, okay, here is this guy who prides himself on being authentic and genuine, but he is actually trying to hide something from us. He is trying to pretend as though something did not happen on the ranch, and he may not have been the person directly who did some of this. We saw it earlier this season, but it's still his land. He has to take the fall for it. It doesn't matter. This is the sort of thing, and we've seen this in the political world all the time, where something like this can spiral and become so much more catastrophic over time. And I think just sort of chipping away at that image of John and started presenting him as, okay, he's not authentic anymore. He's not the salt of the earth guy. It's that then you're opening the floodgates, and then everything else can start to just like all over the place.
Yeah, because there's some other deeper, darker secrets. I mean, nobody's visited the train station this season, but I mean, there's a lot of bodies at that train station that have gone there through his bunkhouse and with his knowledge. Like, he knows that this is happening and it's through his watch. And if those bodies ever pop up, I mean, he's done for. And the wolves could lead to people being like, well, if he's lying about this, what else is he lying about? And then all of a sudden, all these bodies start popping up. Like, it could really unravel in a big way.
Yeah, it's a very big issue. And I know that he's got Summer, who's this environmental activist now, who can come in and sort of argue for him and sort of say, oh, you know, he's not that bad. I've been at the ranch. I've stayed at the ranch. But it's like, how credible of a witness are you when John just bailed you out of prison earlier this season?
Okay, we need to have the Summer talk because, I mean, a lot of us are on the we're not interested in Summer. Summer's not like our favorite person, and she's not my favorite person either. She's but the biggest problem that I'm having with her character, especially like through this season, is that she's being written so inconsistently, where it's like, one minute she's trying to learn about John and she's at the graveyard and she's talking to Monica and it seems like something's kind of sitting with her a little bit. And then the next minute, she's making really juvenile remarks about the senator and calling her names like she's 13 and not like late 30s, early 40s, like a grown woman who wouldn't be talking like that anymore. And I was just like, I don't know. It's just so strange. And then even like, this was one of my issues with last week was after that big fight, she went in and ate these potatoes and Beth was like, oh, there's probably a stick of butter in there. And she's like, bring on the butter. I don't care about my values. And I was just like, okay, this character's being written a little strange. And then this week, so it's like, what, 2 days later, she's like, oh yeah, I peeled all these potatoes, but no, I can't eat any of them because then Gator just poured a bunch of butter in it. And now all of a sudden I'm not eating butter, but I ate it 2 days ago. I'm just like, pick a lane with this character. She's so erratic and nothing makes sense with her anymore that I'm kind of like, I just don't know what they're doing with her or where they're going with her. And then I'm also going to put out there that the show is doing Gator a little dirty as well. Are you telling me that Gator, yes, sir, no, sir, hey, this is what we have for dinner tonight. There's going to be some doves over here, and some potatoes over here, a little bit of corn over here. It's going to be a person who then is like, oh, you have dietary restrictions? I'm going to make all these potatoes and I'm not going to just take a little bowl and put them aside for you as his job as the chef and then just pour butter and bacon in there and be like, sorry for your luck. What is Summer not eating since she's been there? Like, stop doing Gator so dirty.
This show, they're just not putting any thought into Summer's character like in that way at all. And it's like, if you're going to set her up as, okay, you know, I'm vegan, this is what I eat, this is what, then just finish the job. It's not that hard. You don't need to make it, you know, anyone work overtime to make the audience dislike her or disagree, because it's like, guess what? There's already a lot of people out there who don't like vegans. Like, we're all aware of that. You guys don't need to hit this over the head time and time again. Just like allow her to just live her life, function on the ranch. It will be fine. We do not need any further judgments on this character.
There was more time in this episode spent on Summer than was needed. I wanted more time out with, you know, the bunkhouse boys and the cattle wrangling and everything there. I mean, okay, so we also have to talk about this moment with Rip and Beth, where she's so angry this season. And I say that as somebody who got very drawn into this show because of Beth. I think there's a lot of people out there, the first couple seasons were just like, man, I have never seen a character like Beth, where she is just savage and her words are savage and she gets things done. And she's an angry character, but she has become so angry that even in like these private moments where she's, horseback with Rip and her dad's like, oh man, I'm really enjoying this moment. This is what I've been waiting for. And she's like, bah, it's nothing. And it's just like, you can't even just stop for a second where your dad has to be like, I'm going to go ride over there because you can't even give me a minute. Then you've got Rip, who's like, all right, you know what? This is where I wanted us to get married. This is the meadow. And I was just like, I saw this meadow and I'm like, man, we really did get ripped off. Get it? We did get ripped off on that wedding. I was never really a fan of how they did it, where she just rushed it through. And it was just, Beth needs to have these vulnerable moments to make her character just a little bit more well-rounded. She doesn't need to be so in control and pissed off in every second, even when she's alone with her man, who's like, here's this meadow for you. It's exactly what you want. Sit with me. Let's watch the sunset together and just enjoy this moment. Nah, screw your sunset. You're just going to watch me. I was just like, everything doesn't need to be like that, even when you're in private with your man. And Rip is the character, though, that is really coming together this season even more than any other season. I've seen some people complaining that he's getting too soft with his woman. I really like that. He reminds me of my grandfather Compton, who was a very hard man on the outside, but he was soft for his woman, and that was a really nice thing to see.
I think Rip is fantastic. Rip, he's
great.
evolved into such an interesting, like layered character. Like that's the biggest thing I want out of this storyline, at least right now, is some sort of real direction. Like visually, clearly everything with the meadow was fantastic. Like there's no arguing that at all. The question is just, at the end of all of this, does any of this change anything for Rip and Beth? Is it just like a moment for some of us who are rooting for them, that they got to spend time in this meadow together, and that, there is sort of this illusion of what their life could be? And maybe that is sort of the idea here, that we know what Beth really wants and what her future could be before we see it potentially taken away from her. Like maybe that's the point of all of this. It's just, I want, for the amount of time they spent on this story, I want it to matter in the long term. And it's just like, for now, I don't know exactly how it will.
Talking about things that matter, let's talk about the Bunkhouse Boys and how sort of like absent a lot of this has been this season. And talking about absent, where is Jimmy? Where is he? He is listed as a regular on this show. We are this many episodes in. There isn't that many episodes left. Where is he? Okay, I'm done with that. But let's talk about sort of the Bunkhouse Boys and what's been going on, because it seems like the only real big bunkhouse story we're getting is Ryan and this country singer.
I hate this storyline, and I'm not trying to just be like overly hard. It's just, there's nothing original about it. There's nothing interesting about it. This is not a slight against the performers. It's just that I'm not invested in this relationship at all. I just don't care. And the thing is, there's a bunkhouse relationship that is right there that I love. That
Looking at you, Teeter.
Teeter and Colby are incredible. I love everything about them. They're so weird. They're funny. They're interesting. I think the actors are really, really good. And it just, why are we not seeing that? Like, that to me, the idea of, here are two people who have this really extreme job where they're around these other guys who are just like, busting them and giving them a hard time. Like, how do you sustain any sort of romance in this environment? Like, that is so much more interesting than the prototypical country singer and a cowboy story. It's just like, okay, we've all listened to 200 country songs. We're already well aware of this dynamic.
Yeah, it just feels like this episode focused too much on the country singer, way too much on Summer, and not enough in sort of the cattle wrangling and everything that was kind of going on. And I think there could have been even more sort of interesting conversations when they came back that weren't. Summer is taking up too much of the show. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry.
No.
She's taking up too much of the show. Like, she needs to just not be taking up this much of the show.
Yeah. Now, The last beef I have is for you, Mr. John Dutton, and I say this because I know you're not watching YouTube, so you're not going to come back and find me.
No.
He,
I take you to the train station.
yeah, I'm safe from the train station here, but his like, okay, we get it, John. Emmett died a perfect death for a cowboy. You have said this like 500 times. Like, I'm guessing the reason he has said it so many times in this episode is he's trying to like rationalize it to himself, or maybe he's trying to project to other people that it's not that big of a deal. But it's just like, okay, I get it. I understand, John. Let's talk about some other things now.
No, I think that they wrote this the way that they did, where they had him repeated a bunch of times. Then the widow had a cry and is handing out potatoes, and he's like, "Oh, she's cowboy too." I'm just like, she doesn't want to ruin the day. And with that line, I was like, okay, that's what this is about. They wanted to have a death that, you know, mattered so that they could have that that moment on TV, on news that Jamie and Sarah could see. But they had to make it that it wasn't going to ruin the whole day. But let's be honest. I mean, that widow and Emmett would have been married for like, what, 30, 40 years?
Yeah.
No, she's not going to just hear, oh, he died a perfect cowboy death, so now I'm going to cowboy up and serve people food. My husband, love of my life of 40 years, is dead. It's just not believable. Like, you can cowboy up all you want, but when your partner of decades dies and you just find out, 10 minutes later, you're not handing out potatoes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is one of the funnier things of this show is it's like I'm so not of this world. Like my idea of cowboying up is like heating up a can of ranch style beans in the microwave. So this is just all like so far out of my realm.
Yeah, listen, I'm not all cowboy up either. I'm Canadian. I grew up in Toronto, but just the same, love is love and your partner is your partner. And, you know, with that type of a relationship that's decades long like that, and they have passed away, they could have handled it in a way where she may have left the event and the event is okay to continue to go on. Somebody could have left with her. I think they just didn't want it to look like this person died, John gave her a hug, she left, and he continued partying. She had to stay to make the story work.
Yeah, and that's sort of the central issue here. Taylor Sheridan, once again, take a break. Focus more on this show. It'll be okay. You've got too many things going on. Okay.
Good episode, though.
Yeah. I think a very big improvement over what we had last week. But hit that subscribe button because, as Jess said, there is one more episode to come before the hiatus. We don't want you guys to miss that. There may be a really huge cliffhanger at the end of that. Who knows?
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you here next time.